When you think about building wealth, it's kind of like there are two different roads you can take. One is super flashy, it's full of expensive stuff that looks great for a minute, but it's a dead end. But the other path, it's a little slower, a lot more intentional, but it leads to real, solid freedom. Today, we're going to dig into why that second path is the actual secret, and why pretty much everything you've been sold about the first one is just a trap.
So, let's just start with a really simple question. When you see a shiny new Mercedes driving down the street, or someone with a $1,000 watch, who do you picture buying it? Well, the answer might actually surprise you, and it reveals the first huge myth we have to bust.
For decades, right, advertisers and Hollywood have hammered this one image into our heads of what a millionaire looks like. The fancy cars, the designer clothes, just constant crazy spending. But here's the thing, extensive research shows that's almost completely a fantasy.
And this right here shows you just how big that gap is between what we think and what's real. There was this landmark study called The Millionaire Next Door, and it found that most millionaires, they are not driving the latest luxury cars. Nope, they're way more likely to be in a Ford or a Toyota. So who is buying all the BMWs? Well, a lot of the time it's people with high incomes who aren't actually wealthy. And that little difference, that changes everything.
And this isn't just about cars, not by a long shot. The data shows that the huge majority of millionaires are, well, they're surprisingly frugal. Only about a quarter of them have ever bought a watch for over $1,000. About half have never spent more than $140 on a pair of shoes. And get this, for every one millionaire who buys those $300 shoes, there are at least 8 people who aren't millionaires buying them. They're playing a part. They're not actually building wealth.
So who is the real typical millionaire then? Well, meet someone like Johnny Lucas. He looks like your average guy, right? Runs a small janitorial business, but his net worth is over $2 million. He's what the researchers call a prodigious accumulator of wealth, which is really just a fancy way of saying he is a master at living below his means and investing the rest.
Okay, so if being wealthy isn't about all the spending, then what is it? This is where we need to make a really big shift in our thinking. And for that, we're going to lean on the incredible insights of the philosopher and investor Naval Ravikant. So first things first, we got to redefine wealth. It is not the number that hits your bank account on payday. Real wealth is owning productive assets, things that make money for you even when you're not working. So think about a business, a stock portfolio, rental properties, or even a piece of software that's out there working 24/7. Now money, that's just the tool. It's like a social IOU. When you go out and do work that society finds valuable, it gives you money as a sort of credit for your time and your effort. It's how we move that value around, but it's not the wealth itself. And finally, we have status. This is your rank in the social pecking order. And the most important thing to get about status is that it's a zero-sum game. For someone to go up, someone else has to go down. People chase status by buying all those luxury goods, trying to signal that they're winning. But it's a total trap, and it's a game that will actively stop you from ever building real wealth.
So here's the bottom line. Chasing money is just a grind, and chasing status, it's a losing battle that just drains your resources. The real goal, the only game worth playing, is to seek wealth, to own those assets that work for you. And that, right there, is the mindset of people like Johnny Lucas.
Okay, so we know the goal is wealth. But how do you actually, get there? To get a practical map, let's turn to Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant. It's a really powerful way to see things. He basically breaks down all income into 4 buckets. On the left side, you've got the employee, who has a job, and the self-employed, who owns a job. In both cases, you're trading your time for money. But on the right side, you have the business owner, who owns a system that makes money, and the investor, whose money works for them. And honestly, the entire journey of building wealth can be boiled down to this one simple idea, moving from the left side of this chart to the right side. It's about breaking that cycle of trading hours for dollars and starting to own the systems and assets that make money all on their own. Moving to the right side of that quadrant really comes down to one single, powerful principle. It's a simple idea, but man, it has huge implications for how you should think about your entire career. Naval Ravikant just says it so perfectly here. When you have a salary, you are literally renting out your time. But there's a hard limit on how many hours you have to rent, right? Real financial freedom comes from owning equity, owning a piece of the business itself.
And you see this exact choice play out all the time, especially in the tech and startup world. Do you take the higher, safer salary, or do you take a lower salary but with more equity, a bigger slice of the company? The first path is safe, sure, but it's limited. The other path is way riskier, but the potential upside is completely uncapped.
But picking the equity path isn't just a blind gamble. You have to think like an owner. You got to ask the tough questions. How long until that equity is actually yours? What's the vesting schedule? What's the end game here? Is the company planning to get sold or go public? Answering these questions for yourself is how you start to make that move to the right side of the quadrant.
Okay, let's pull all these ideas together. We've busted the millionaire myth. We've redefined what wealth actually is, and we've seen why owning equity is the absolute key. So, what's the actual game plan?
The strategy is actually beautifully simple. Think of it like a championship sports team. You can't win with just one or the other. You absolutely need a great defense and a great offense. Let's break down what that means for your money. Your defense is all about financial discipline. It's living below your means, it's refusing to play that status game, and it's consistently saving and investing part of what you make, like at least 15%. This is your foundation. This is the Johnny Lucas strategy that protects your money and gives you the resources you need to play offense.
Now your offense, this is how you actively grow that wealth. It's about taking the capital you saved up with your great defense and using leverage to multiply it. And leverage can be money, sure, but it can also be things like code or media, things that can work for you even while you sleep. This is how you build or buy the equity that creates real, lasting wealth.
So there it is, the two-part formula. It's that simple. First, you play great defense. You control your spending. You reject the whole status game. Then you use that financial firepower to play great offense. You go out and own a piece of a business, whether it's your own or shares in a company. That is the path.
And at the end of the day, why do any of this? The ultimate goal isn't just a giant pile of cash or quitting your job when you're 65. It's freedom. It's getting to a place where you're no longer having to sacrifice your present for some imaginary future. When you truly control your own time and you get to do what you love, you're already retired, no matter how old you are. So the real question isn't, how do I get rich? The real question is, how do I get free?